The night was already cruel before fate made it unforgettable, the kind of winter night where the cold doesn't just bite the skin but crawls into the bones and refuses to leave, when a homeless girl named Emily Carter stood frozen on the sidewalk outside a dimly lit roadside diner, clutching a thin, torn jacket around her shoulders and counting her breaths so they wouldn't turn into panic, when suddenly everything stopped because a small girl collapsed just a few feet away and went terrifyingly still. And in that single moment Emily's entire world narrowed to the sound that never came again, the child's breath. And before this story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that strangers can change lives forever, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this connect hearts across the world. Emily had been homeless since she was 16, after a chain of events that began with loss and ended with silence from everyone she once trusted, and by 19 she had learned how to disappear into the background of cities, how to read people's faces quickly to know who might kick her away and who might ignore her, and how to survive winter nights by standing near places with light and movement, places where life felt warmer even if she wasn't part of it. That diner was one of those places, and outside it stood a line of motorcycles that looked like steel beasts resting after a hunt, their chrome reflecting neon light, their engines ticking softly as they cooled, and nearby a group of Hell's Angels bikers filled the night with low laughter and heavy footsteps, men whose appearance alone made most people cross the street without thinking twice. Emily kept her eyes down like she always did, until she noticed a little girl with chestnut hair and a red scarf hopping excitedly near one of the bikes, her laughter bright against the dark, while her father, a broad-shouldered biker named Jack Morrison, watched her with a softness that didn't match his rough exterior. The moment happened fast and slow at the same time, the child stumbling, her laughter cutting off, her small body collapsing onto the cold pavement, and at first no one reacted because the mind refuses to accept danger that quickly. But Emily reacted because she knew that stillness too well. She rushed forward on instinct, dropping to her knees, touching the girl's cheek and feeling skin that was far too cold, seeing lips tinged faintly blue, realizing with a jolt of terror that the child was not breathing. Emily froze not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much, because the weight of another life felt unbearable, because memories of helplessness flooded her mind, but then something deeper than fear took over, something she didn't know she still had. She placed her hands where she had once been taught in a shelter years ago, her movements shaking but determined, counting silently in her head, pushing and breathing and begging the universe not to take this child too. Around her, chaos erupted as Jack realized what was happening, his shout ripping through the night, the laughter dying instantly as bikers surrounded them, their faces hard with fear instead of anger, and when Jack dropped beside his daughter, his hands trembling too much to help, it was Emily who kept going, tears streaming down her face as she fought the cold and the seconds that felt like hours. Someone called emergency services, someone else tried to clear space, but it was Emily's fragile hands that kept moving, her breath fogging the air as she whispered prayers she didn't know she remembered, and just when despair seemed ready to claim the night, the child coughed weakly, her chest rising in a shallow, precious breath that broke the silence like thunder. The relief that followed was overwhelming, Jack collapsing forward with a sob he didn't try to hide, clutching his daughter to his chest while Emily fell back onto the pavement, her strength finally giving out, her body shaking not just from the cold but from the realization of what had almost been lost. The ambulance arrived with flashing lights that painted the bikers' jackets in red and blue, paramedics working quickly while Emily slipped quietly back toward the shadows, convinced her role in the story was already over, because people like her didn't get thanked, they got forgotten. She didn't get far. One of the bikers noticed her staggering, then another, and soon Jack himself was standing in front of her, his eyes red, his voice thick as he asked who she was and how she knew what to do. Emily tried to brush it off, tried to disappear again, but something in Jack's expression stopped her, something that said this man had seen enough loss to recognize a miracle when it stood in front of him shivering and alone. That night didn't end with the ambulance driving away. It ended with 180 Hell's Angels riders forming a quiet circle around a homeless girl who had just saved one of their own, their engines roaring not in menace but in solidarity as they escorted Emily to a nearby motel, paying for a warm room, hot food, clean clothes, and safety she hadn't felt in years. Over the following days, the story spread through their community, not as a tale of fear but of gratitude, of how courage can come from the most unexpected places, and those 180 riders didn't stop at one night of help. They helped Emily replace lost documents, find medical care for frostbitten hands, and eventually enroll in training for emergency response, because they had seen firsthand what she could do when it mattered most. Jack's daughter, Lily Morrison, recovered fully, and every time she laughed again it reminded Emily that life could return from the edge if someone was willing to fight for it. Emily's biggest challenge had never been the cold or hunger, it had been believing she mattered, believing that one broken life could still save another, and through the unlikely family she found among leather jackets and roaring engines, she began to rebuild herself piece by piece. Months later, Emily stood in a clean uniform, her hair tied back, confidence slowly replacing fear, watching a line of motorcycles ride past in the distance, knowing she was no longer invisible, knowing that kindness had found her when she least expected it. Just before this story ends, we want to ask you something important. Please comment below and tell us what part of this story moved you the most, because your words might be the hope someone else needs today, and if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that humanity still exists even in the coldest nights, please like, share, and engage with this video so more people can feel that hope too. Because sometimes all it takes to change a life is one moment, one choice, and one person. Brave enough to act when everything else stands still.